Hey guys, Bear here. Welcome to my in-depth Eldlich guide. If you want to view something specific, timestamps are going to be in the description below. Alright, so let's hop right into it. Alright, so let's start off by going over the archetype. The deck is based around Eldlich the Golden Lord, and you should think of him as your captain of the deck. So his first effect is that you can send this card and one spell or trap from your hand to the graveyard, then target one card in the field, send it to the graveyard. This effect is really good because it allows you to play a plethora of floodgates that you usually wouldn't be able to play without hindering your strategy in some capacity. So for example, you would be able to play something like Imperial Order or There Can Only Be One, and it's so easy for you to get rid of them when you actually need to go off with your cards, just because you can use Eldlich, send it to the graveyard, and just easily get rid of it. This effect's also a great way to get rid of problematic cards that are on your opponent's board. Now, as for his other effect, that's also another way that you can get rid of your problematic floodgates in case they hinder your strategy. You can send one spell or trap you control to the graveyard, add this card to your hand, then you can special summon one zombie monster from your hand, and if you do, until the end of your opponent's turn, it gains 1000 attack and defense and cannot be destroyed by card effects. You gotta remember, you can only use each effect of Eldlich the Golden Lord once per turn. So the next card we're going to be talking about is Cursed Eldland. Cursed Eldland is probably the best card you can ask for in your opening hand. An important thing to know with Eldland, however, is that you cannot declare attacks except with zombie monsters, so you have to be really careful about when you're building your board. Next, you can only use each of the following effects of Cursed Eldland once per turn. So first, you can pay 800 life points, add one Eldlich monster, which is your boss monster, your captain, or one golden land, which we're going to get into next, spell or trap from your deck to your hand. The other is, if this card is sent from the spell or trap zone to the graveyard, you can send one Eldlich monster or one golden land spell trap from your deck to the graveyard. That way, when you're special summoning your captain from his grave, it gives you the ability to set up your grave, and it makes sure you don't lose your resource for nothing in the process. I think it's safe to say that your captain and Eldland are both mandatory 3-ofs in the deck. Next, we're moving on to our golden land cards. So the way to think about these cards is, a first mate is nothing without their captain. And the exact same applies here, because if you don't have your golden boy on the field, you won't be able to get the full benefit of these effects. So let's start off with Conquistador of the Golden Land. So you can special summon this card as a normal monster with the stats Zombie, Light, level 5, attack 500, defense 1800. This card is also still a trap. Then, if you control Eldlich the Golden Lord, you can destroy one face-up card on the field. During the end phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard, set one Eldlich spell trap directly from your deck. The Eldlichs we're going to cover next after these. You can only use one Conquistador of the Golden Land effect per turn, and only once during that turn. So first off, one notable thing is, this card does not target for its destruction. And a word of advice, if you are about to lose this card, do not chain it for the sake of chaining it, because if you activate it, you can't use the graveyard effect for that turn. So if the card is going to die, just let it die. This card is a safe 3-of in the deck. Next, let's cover Hawkwero of the Golden Land. So, same as before, you can special summon this card as a normal monster, Zombie, Light, also level 5, attack 1800, which is notable, defense 1500. This card is also still a trap. Then, if you control Eldlich the Golden Lord, you can banish one card from either graveyard. During the end phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard, set one Eldlich spell trap directly from your deck. You can only use one Hawkwero of the Golden Land effect per turn, and only once during that turn. This is essentially your DD Crow of the deck, and considering that so many decks are so heavily reliant on their graveyard, this card is an amazing addition to the deck at the moment. You can play this card either at 2 or 3, however, I do not recommend playing it at lower than 2. Moving on to our next card, we have Guardian of the Golden Land. So, same as with the other two, you can special summon this card as a normal monster, Zombie, Light, except this time it's a level 8, attack 800, defense 2500. This card is also still a trap. Then, if you control Eldlich the Golden Lord, you can make the attack of one face-up monster on the field become 0. An important ruling to know is that you cannot activate this card in the damage step. During the end phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard, set one Eldritch Elixir spell or trap directly from your deck. You can only use one Guardian of the Golden Land effect per turn and only once that turn. A lot of players are choosing to run this card at 1 because, as you can see, it's probably not the best card in deck, considering you also can't use it in damage step, but it is another Golden Land name that you can send off of your Eldland spell, or something you can send from your hand with Golden Lord without feeling bad about wasting a resource. And the final Golden Land card that we're going to talk about is the Counter Trap, Golden Land Forever. When a spell or trap card or monster effect is activated while you control an Eldritch monster, you can tribute one zombie monster, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. You can only activate one Golden Land Forever per turn. I believe that you should be running at least one copy of this card, maximum 2. The reason being is it's a counter trap negate, first off, and 2, it's searchable. Moving on, we have our Elixir cards. So these are the cards that you can set off of your Golden Land cards, and these work similar, meaning that these can be banished to set your Golden Land cards. But the downside to these are there are 2 spell cards with your Elixirs, meaning that they are a tad bit slower and that you will have to wait until your turn in order to reuse them. And as you'd probably guess, in that sense, the trap is probably the best one here, since it is more versatile and you would be able to use it during your opponent's turn. However, we're going to save the trap for last, and we're going to start off with Elixir of Black Awakening. So with Black Awakening, you can special summon one zombie monster from your hand or deck in defense position, but if you control no Eldritch monsters, you can only special summon one Eldritch monster with this effect. For the rest of this turn, after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters except for zombie monsters. You can banish this card from your graveyard, set one Golden Land spell trap directly from your deck, and you can only use one Elixir of Black Awakening effect per turn and only once during that turn. Notice the pattern yet? Yeah, they all have that you can only use one effect per turn and only once during that turn clause. My personal preference is running 2 copies of this card, however I do see a lot of people running 3. The reason for me choosing to run 2 is because I feel like as the game goes on, and considering this is also a grind deck, as the game goes on, this card becomes more dead, and when you banish your Golden Land cards, you don't really want to be setting this card, because it doesn't really do anything for you. I've had one too many scenarios where I drew into another copy of this card later on into the game, and I was just wishing it was literally anything else. Next, we're going to cover Elixir of White Destiny. This card is a tad bit better because it is a quick play and you can kind of use it on your opponent's turn. So, you can special summon one zombie monster from your hand or graveyard, but if you control no Eldritch monsters, you can only special summon Eldritch monsters with this effect. For the rest of this turn, after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters except zombie monsters. So, if you want to summon anything else, make sure you summon it before you use this card. During your main phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard, set one Golden Land spell or trap directly from your deck. You can only use one Elixir of White Destiny effect per turn and only once that turn. The standard ratio for this card is currently to run it at 1. However, I wouldn't judge you if you want to perhaps test it out at 2. I do think it's actually a really good card. Moving on to the best of the bunch, we have Elixir of Scarlet Sanguine. Sanguine? I don't know, whatever. So, you can special summon one zombie monster from your deck or graveyard, but if you control no Eldritch monsters, you can only special summon Eldritch monsters with this effect. For the rest of this turn, after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters except zombie monsters. You can banish this card from your graveyard, set one Golden Land spell trap directly from your deck. You can only use one Elixir of Scarlet Sanguine effect per turn and only once during that turn. If you're playing this deck, you absolutely have to be running this card at 3 copies. That about wraps it up for the Golden Land cards. However, we do have one more card to cover in this archetype, and that card is El Dorado Adelantado. I don't know how to say that, but whatever, close enough. So this card reads, if you control an Eldritch monster, activate one of these effects. 1. Shuffle 3 of your banished Elixir spell traps with different names into your deck, and if you do, destroy all cards in the field. 2. Shuffle 3 of your banished Golden Land spells or traps with different names into your deck, and if you do, have your opponent's life points, then you gain life points equal to their life points, and you can only activate one Eldorado Adelantado per turn. This card sees absolutely no play in the deck as it is right now, because it is just far too slow of a card and needs way too much setup. So we're just going to ignore it and move on. For the next part of this video, we are going to be discussing common tech choices that are currently being run in Eldlich. First discussion is going to be about Inspector Border. Inspector Border is great for many reasons. First off, you don't have a dedicated normal summon. And two, he doesn't really conflict with your strategy, meaning you have so many ways to get out your Golden Lord and you're more reliant on your traps for interruption that you're not really stunned by not being able to activate monster effect. So for the next tech card, we're going to be discussing Summon Limit. Summon Limit is a phenomenal card to be playing at the moment because we are entering Master Rule 5, a lot of people are looking to spam decks, and decks like Adamantipator are on the rise, and decks like Rockets, Dinosaurs, Shaddoll's are still a thing. So this is great because at most with Eldlich, you're looking to summon once, maybe twice a turn. And the fact that you're mainly looking to use your traps to summon on your opponent's turn, this card does not restrict you whatsoever. Our next tech card is Skill Drain. Unfortunately, we're not as fortunate as the OCG who actually have this card at 3. I don't know how that's allowed, but anyways, so your Golden Boy only activates in a hand or graveyard, so he's absolutely not affected by Skill Drain. And your traps, yeah, Skill Drain doesn't negate traps, so you're just absolutely fine to run this card, and it's going to hinder your opponents way more than it'll ever hinder you. And our final tech card, Imperial Order. If you're really good at this game, you are going to open this card. But all jokes aside, you can get rid of this card at any time that you need with your Golden Boy. So this card does not stop your strategy at all. And there are players who are so heavily reliant on their spells that if you flip this card, they're automatically forced to scoop and go to the next game. So what kind of a tech discussion would this be if I didn't include some spicy techs? First spicy tech, we have Performer Pal Pupper Up. This card allows you to discard up to 3 cards and draw the same number of cards. Now, considering that a lot of your spells and traps do float, and you actually do want your Golden Boy in the graveyard, this is actually not a bad choice at all, because not only does it refresh your hand, you could actually gain a lot of advantage by using it. And the next spicy tech is Magician's Souls. So this deck does not have a dedicated normal summon, meaning you can normal summon Magician's Souls and it won't hinder your plays going forward. And you can also send your spells and traps just like with Popper Up, and you can draw 2 cards, refresh your hand, and not only that, you can either use Souls to go into perhaps a Link Karibo or maybe a Relinquish Anima. For the next part of this video, let's talk about hand traps that you should consider running in your main deck. The first one is Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom is always going to be generically really good because a lot of decks are always going to either search something, try to send something to the graveyard, draw a card, etc, etc. You can do absolutely no wrong by running Ash Blossom in your deck. The next hand trap is Infinite Impermanence. The reason you can use Infinite Impermanence in this deck so well is because not only can you use it for the reasons that it's intended to be used for, you can also use it alongside your Eldlich the Golden Lord to either send it from your hand or your field for additional purposes. Next, we're looking at Psyframe Gear Gamma. So, Gamma is really good because you're not dedicating your board to monsters on the first turn. You're going to have cards that are either going to A, draw you cards, or B, search you cards. Or on your opponent's turn, you're going to have your Scarlet, which we learned by now is going to special summon your Golden Boy from your deck. And in that case, if your opponent decides to hand trap you with perhaps Ash, then you can use Gamma, you can negate it, and you can have your effect resolve. Whether it's of Eldland, maybe it's your Pot of Extravagance, whatever it is, Gamma is actually a really good card that fits really well with this deck. And the final hand trap of choice, one that I personally choose to main deck at the moment. There are a lot of combo decks. There are Rockets, there are Salamangreat, there are Adamanticators, and the thing with these decks is they're not really able to put out something like an Appaloosa or anything without either completely hindering their strategy or putting it out way too early that they're not going to be able to build a competent board. I believe at this present time Nibiru is a must-have to play in your deck, whether it's in the main or side. Our next part of the video is going to be covering the extra deck. These are extra deck cards that you absolutely must have if you're playing Eldlich. The first one we're going to cover is Constellar Pleiades. Pleiades is a generic rank 5 Xyz, and its effect is a quick effect that lets you detach one, target one card in the field, and return it to the hand. Now, considering that your two best Golden Land cards are level 5s, this card is fairly easy to make and it comes up quite frequently. Next, we have Gustav Max. Gustav Max requires 2 level 10s, and the way that you summon him is by using 2 of your Golden Lords. So, not only do you obviously use Gustav for the 2k burn, but you can also use Gustav to overlay him for Libe. With Libe, it gives your deck the ability to hit your opponent hard and hit them for lethal. Next, I have a sleeper pick for the extra deck, which for some reason I don't really see a lot of people running. That card is Shark Fortress. Shark Fortress is a generic rank 5 that allows you to detach one material, target one card in the field, and allow it to attack twice that turn. This card actually comes up for me quite frequently, and I'm shocked that more people aren't running it. So we've talked about how to play the deck. Now, let's talk about how to beat the deck. So, probably the biggest blowout card against this deck is Evenly Matched. Evenly Matched banishes your spells and traps and your Golden Boy, which hinders your ability to play the game, because if you don't have your resources in the graveyard, you don't really have much that you can do on the following turn. Next up, we have DD Crow, a card that's already generically really good against the meta. With DD Crow, if you get to banish 1, 2, or even 3 copies of the Golden Boy, well, at 3 the game is pretty much done at that point because there is not much else you can do, but even 1 or 2 copies will tremendously hurt the strategy. Another card capable of serving the same purpose of banishing the Golden Lord is Called by the Grave. Called by the Grave is a little less versatile than DD Crow because it's not able to hit the spells and traps like DD Crow can. However, the point still stands. If you banish the 3 Golden Boys, the game is pretty much over for the Eldlich player. And the final card that I want to cover is Cosmic Cyclone. However, unlike the other 3, I don't recommend putting this card into your deck for the sole purpose of beating Eldlich. Cosmic Cyclone is a great card because it already deals with problematic cards in the meta like Mystic Mine. And against Eldlich, you could use Cosmic Cyclone to banish their spells and traps so that way they're not able to float when they go to the graveyard. And with all that being said, we have almost come to the end of the guide. For the last part of this guide, I'm going to give you guys a sample deck list to start off and play the deck with. And to follow, I'm going to be showing you guys some replays which will give you examples of how to play the deck. So, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe and enjoy.